They say your skin is your sin. They say your place is where they put you. But what happens when the man they try to put in place is the man who writes the rules? This is a story about what happens when arrogance, ignorance, and racism collide with power, patience, and purpose. It all began on a rainy Tuesday in a small southern town. His name is Marcus J. Harper, age 42, Navy veteran, Juris Doctor, former federal prosecutor, and newly appointed Director of Internal Affairs for the State Department of Justice. But today, he was just a black man walking. Cut to two patrol officers sitting in a cruiser across the street. Their demeanor changes as they notice Marcus. Officer 1 smirking. "You see that guy in the suit?" Officer 2 asterisk. "Yeah, doesn't look like he's from around here." Officer 1 said asterisk. "Let's say hello." To them he was suspicious. To them he was too polished, too composed. To them he didn't fit the script they were used to, and in a town like Mayfield, Georgia, that was enough. Officer 1 said asterisk. "ID now." Marcus replied asterisk. "Good afternoon, officers. May I ask why I'm being stopped?" Officer 2 said asterisk. "You're in a known drug zone. Don't get smart." Marcus replied asterisk. "I'm headed to a meeting at the courthouse." Officer 1 mocking. "Is that right? And who you meeting, Mr. Fancy Shoes?" They snatched his briefcase, searched his pockets, demanded he get on the ground right there, in the mud, in the rain, in his tailored suit. Marcus stands still, refusing to kneel. Marcus responded asterisk. "I will not comply with an unlawful order." Officer 2 said asterisk. "You got 5 seconds before I make you." Tension rises. Marcus slowly pulls out a badge. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't resist. He simply revealed the truth, but that badge wasn't enough. Officer 1 said asterisk. "This a fake, where you steal this from?" They cuff him. Rough, no backup, no questions. Booking officer said asterisk. "Sir, I think we made a mistake." Meanwhile, Marcus sat silently in a cold metal chair, rainwater dripping from his sleeves. Across town, the courthouse was preparing to receive its new guest speaker, Director Marcus J. Harper, Internal Affairs. "Now I want you to think about this." He didn't yell, he didn't plead. He knew who he was, and still they treated him like dirt, because in their minds no black man in a suit could be anything more than a threat. Before we go further, take a moment and subscribe. These stories need to be told. They're not fiction. They're echoes of what happens every day to people whose only crime is existing. Back to the story. In the police station, the door swings open. A senior officer walks in holding a folder. He looks at Marcus, then at the arresting officers. Senior officer said asterisk. "Uncuff him now." Officer 2, nervous, said asterisk. "But he was in a drug zone, sir." Senior officer replied asterisk. "He is your new boss. That is Director Harper of Internal Affairs." The air went still. The room shrank. The power dynamic flipped like a coin. You could hear the sound of careers beginning to crack. Marcus stands, slowly adjusts his cuffs, straightens his tie, and said, "Gentlemen, I'll see you in the conference room." Marcus at the podium, in a large meeting room, officers seated and sweating, he said, "I came here to talk about accountability, about ethics, about the oath you took, but today I saw everything I needed to see in the street." He pauses, looks around, the room is silent. Marcus continuing, "You judged me by my color, not by my conduct. You profiled, assaulted, and humiliated me, and now you want mercy." Officer 1 softly, "Sir, we didn't know ." Marcus said asterisk. "You knew exactly what you were doing. What you didn't know was who I was." And then he leans forward and began again. But let me ask you this. Why should it matter who I am? Why should any of this change just because you got caught bullying the wrong black man? That question hung in the air like smoke, thick, uncomfortable, inescapable. Because this time he lived. This time he had a badge. This time he had power. But what about the rest of us? 2 weeks later, they thought they were untouchable. But when you serve the system without serving justice, justice eventually comes for *U. Marcus steps up to a podium. Press conference begins. He holds up the bodycam footage. Marcus began speaking *. This is not about revenge. This is about reckoning, and today is only the beginning. But just as the gavel was about to fall, just as the walls of corruption started to crumble, a new threat arrived. Because when power speaks truth to power, the system doesn't go quietly. To be continued. If this story shook you, share it, subscribe, comment, because silence protects the powerful, and storytelling, that protects us *. Part 2 is coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's inside that SUV. Voice on phone. You think you made a difference today. You just declared war on a brotherhood that don't take kindly to shame. Marcus said, "Justice has no brotherhood." Voice replied, "You made enemies, Harper, real ones." And just like that, the story widened. The badge wasn't a shield, it was a target. Because in the fight for justice, being right doesn't always keep you safe. And when the wolves circle, will the truth be enough to protect him? Last time you saw Director Marcus J. Harper walk into that courthouse, expose corruption, and bring 2 dirty cops to justice. But when that black SUV rolled in, something darker rolled with it. What Marcus didn't know, what none of us knew, was that justice just the beginning. A phone call, a threat, a car chase in the shadows, this wasn't random. This was personal. Because when you shine light on darkness, the shadows fight back. He thought the danger was behind him, but the real enemy was waiting inside the system. Marcus walks inside, lights flicker. On his kitchen table, a manila envelope, no name, no return address, just one word, brotherhood. Inside the envelope, a USB and a photograph of Marcus at his son's school. Marcus inserting USB. A file opens, bodycam footage, but not just any footage. It shows the arresting officers from earlier, laughing, with high-ranking officials in a closed-door meeting. Officer 1 on video. "We taught that boy a lesson." Unknown voice. "And now he's teaching us. Shut it down, all of it." No. That was one of the cops who arrested Marcus. But 10 years ago, he was accused of manslaughter. The file was sealed, buried, erased. Federal investigator said, "We had our suspicions, but every time we got close, the case fell apart. Witnesses moved or died." But suddenly, this wasn't about Marcus. It was about a decade-long cover-up, dozens of officers, hundreds of victims, and a trail that led back to a single man. A wall of photos in Marcus's home. Red yarn connects victims, officers, court officials. In the center, one photo, Police Commissioner Gerald Stone. He wasn't just involved, he was the architect. Flashback to Commissioner Stone swearing into office, shaking hands with state leaders. He smiles, but now we know. Marcus prepares a report, submits evidence to DOJ, but hours later, the federal investigator he met with is found dead, car crash, no witnesses, case ruled an accident. One by one, the truth was being silenced. Marcus starts receiving anonymous texts, threats, warnings. One message stands out: "You're next. The Brotherhood always collects." Still he presses on, speaks at rallies, visits families, builds a case. Marcus on the phone with victims' families, lawyers, lawmakers, news crews. Each time he speaks, he gets bolder. Each time, the threats get closer. Then the unthinkable. Marcus's son doesn't come home from school. Phone goes to voicemail. Panic sets in. This wasn't just about him anymore. Hours later, Marcus receives another envelope. Inside, a photograph, his son tied to a chair. A timestamp, 3:15 p.m., a note, "End it or he ends." The Brotherhood had drawn blood, and now Marcus had a choice. Marcus in his home office, wall covered in files, faces, names. He stares at the photo of his son, shakes, cries, then wipes his eyes, picks up the phone. Marcus into phone. Activate Protocol Raven. Protocol Raven, a failsafe. If anything happened to Marcus, everything he uncovered would go public, all of it. He was out of time, out of options, but not out of fight. Marcus gets into his car, drives to an abandoned warehouse, the one from the photo's metadata, storms in. Inside, men in tactical gear, hooded figure in the center. Marcus calls out. "Marcus, let him go, this ends now." One of the men lowers his mask. It's Officer Daniel Cross. "Cross, it ends when you say the words, you walk away, you resign, you erase everything." Marcus steps forward, calmly. Marcus said, "You already lost. Even if you kill me, the files are out there." Suddenly, sirens, SWAT vehicles pull up outside, federal agents swarm in. He triggered Protocol Raven, and they came. Shots fired, agents arrest Cross, rescue Marcus's son, but Commissioner Stone nowhere to be found. Weeks later, the news, headlines, Brotherhood exposed, corruption network TAKES a fall, but then a federal witness scheduled to testify disappears. A key document vanishes from DOJ archives. A judge recuses herself. The system still stinks. Marcus said, "I thought justice was about evidence, about truth, but now I know justice is war, and in war the enemy never sleeps." Marcus opens a locker. Inside, a new badge, a new case file. He exhales. Because somewhere out there, Commissioner Stone was still free, and the Brotherhood. They were already rebuilding. Commissioner Stone in a foreign country reading a newspaper with Marcus on the cover. He smiles, pulls out a burner phone, dials. Stone. He thinks it's over. And that is where the next chapter begins. This isn't just a story. This is a warning. Corruption hides behind uniforms, behind smiles, behind silence. Share this, like it, comment, because if we don't expose it, who will? Marcus in a war room. Map with pins, profiles, voice memos, clippings. The Brotherhood wasn't one group, it was a network, an empire, and it didn't die easily. Justice took a step forward, but the darkness, it was still watching. And someone is watching the Brotherhood